Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @SheKnows. It's an emergency transfer pod, you guys. It really, really is. We're supposed to do the Manchester City post-match show, and it's difficult to keep with the schedule when there's constant upheaval and constant chaos going on within the club. And you may say it's not constant upheaval and constant chaos, it's just the media. But quite frankly, no other club is really going through this, and there's no smoke without fire. So even if it's thrown out of proportion, I think we can all come to the conclusion that something's not right within Arsenal at the moment, and it's taking away from being able to talk about the games. It's manifesting itself on the pitch because, to be quite honest, even if the Ainsley Maitland-Niles stuff hadn't come out today, even if, whatever, we still would have had a difficult time talking about the Manchester City game because of the crisis that we're in at the moment. There's something going on, right? There's about 24 hours left in the transfer window, and the Arsenal fan base has never really been more divided, in my opinion. We're fighting. We feel like the most dysfunctional family I've ever seen. Arteta in, Arteta out, Edu out, Vinay. What does he even do? I think there's a lot of questions around what is his role. Trust the process is in the mud. The project is in the mud. This season feels like it's already in the mud. All or nothing is looking increasingly like nothing. And to make matters worse, Ozil is making an expose about his final year at Arsenal. I mean, could it get any worse? 3 games, 3 losses, no goals, and 9 against. 20th place. What is this? We're breaking records left and right, and not the good kind. One side of the fan base is asking for patience, the other is screaming for action, and that was before the Ainsley Maitland-Niles thing. It was before. And if you've been under a rock, I'll just show you what Ainsley put out this morning. It was this morning for me, but he put this out on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on Instagram. And it basically said, all I want to do is go where I'm wanted and where I'm going to play. And he tagged Arsenal in it. This was like minutes after reports had come out that there was a loan with an option deal on the table for Ainsley from Everton. And Arsenal had decided that they didn't want to go in that direction and they wanted to keep Ainsley. And then Arsenal Twitter was set alight with so much commentary, so much frustration, just a lot of negativity post this. And I want to be fair here because Ornstein reported that, since the season has started, Ainsley has basically made it known that he's willing to play, he wants to play right back. This felt like an agent briefing to me, very much so, And regardless, even if he came this season and said he wanted to play right back and he was okay with it, that doesn't erase all of the things that happened prior. So the revisionism, in my opinion, is just a little bit too much. But what I would say is that for me, this is an opportunity for Mikel Arteta to show that he can manage players. His man management has been called into question several times. And we've never really gotten a concrete answer we don't have concrete evidence that it's improving. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is probably the best right back at the club. He's homegrown and within the age range that we seem to be recruiting. English, young, up and coming. So why not put your arm around him and have him be the starting right back? It's not like Edu's going to bring you a right back. You literally need somebody to play in that position. But I fear that this will be another situation where he'll be sent into exile and we won't hear from him again. The club will say that he had a horrible attitude and we'll never hear about it again. We won't get a fee for him and it'll just be what it is. Another Guendouzi, Saliba, Torreira scenario. And with that, I just feel like there's a lot of anxiety around Arteta and Edu, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the transfer rumors, where we kind of are in terms of outgoings. Do we believe that there's actually going to be incomings? William, because he's been confirmed that he's gone. And for somebody who's had such negativity around them from the Arsenal fan base, what he did was quite gentlemanlike. And I think we should all appreciate him for that. We'll also talk about just, do people need to go? You know, is it a matter of the entire regime just needs to go? Edu, Vinay, and Arteta? Or can some pieces stay and others be removed and replaced with other people and we can move forward? Are we being too rash with Arteta out, Edu out, Vinay out? Or are we right on time? That's what we're going to talk about today. So there's about 91 of you guys watching right now. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my panel for today. I have Souls here and my friend Ayo from the Arsenal Asylum. Hey, guys.
Hey, Jess, what's good?
Well, it's here. It feels like the apocalypse, doesn't it?
Shout out to my 0.05 XG crew. We in the house.
I mean, look, I have never seen anything like what I saw against Man City. I've never seen anything. 18% possession. You know, that is catastrophic even with 10 men. And like no shots on goal, no big chances created. I mean, 5 goals against. And we're just supposed to expect that
that's the 35th minute.
Yeah, it's expected. You know, that's the thing. It's like, it's expected at this point, and I don't feel like we should expect that or accept it. I think we need to ask questions about how we've gotten to a point where it's okay to throw away the first 3 games because of some adversity, right? But before we kind of get into that, I just want to kind of get sold, like, your reaction to the Ainsley Maitland-Niles situation. I think we have to be fair, right? There has to be they have to get the facts right. There was a point in time where Ainsley was maybe did not want to play right back or was making it seem like that's not what he really wanted, right? Because we would not have brought in Cedric if that was the case. Cedric was brought in because Ainsley was agitating. So let's not go back in time and make it seem like this entire time he was willing to play right back and now we're just finding something out. But what do you think about the news that's come out, the way that Ainsley has come out? Do you think that that's the right way that he should have handled it? And what should happen moving forward? Is this another situation where it's just okay to exile him? Or is this an opportunity to maybe bring him back into the fold and start a new chapter with Ainsley? It's not like he's a bad player, right?
It's difficult because obviously we knew he wanted to play midfield, hence why he chose to go to West Brom over many other suitors for his loan move last season, where right back was being offered. I think it was Southampton. I think even Leicester at some point wanted him. Wolves wanted him, but as a right back, and he refused to go to all of them. And the one that he wanted to go to was West Brom, a relegation team, to learn his football because they were giving him midfield. So let's not point this at Arsenal and say that they're the villains in this one, because what has Maitland-Niles done to say that he's committed to play this right back position? I'm not in good faith with the club at the moment, because I do think they lie to us a lot, and I'm not sat here wanting to defend the club. You know, I've probably been the most negative out of the 3 at the moment, and this is where I have to back them, because he hasn't ever come. He made it categorically clear to us he wants to play midfield and not right back. Okay, yes, he continued to play right back. I respect him for that. But he made that clear. So why not come out and say you wanted to play right back? Let the fans know then. You're clearly brave enough and you grew a pair of balls to say that the club isn't letting you go because you want to play football and you want it. So clearly you can do it. You're not asked about the consequences of talking against the club. And this is where it's a lack of professionalism. It lacks, for me, this is where you can destroy your career, not just at Arsenal Football Club, but in the Premier League, because people frown upon this thing. You can't talk against your employers in this way. And for me, it's a lack of clarity from him. It's a lack of coming out and telling us what his intentions were, because the only thing that we've ever heard is, I want to be a midfielder. I want to prove myself in this Arsenal midfield. And that's a frustrating thing, because we've been saying it all summer long. And also, he's not going to come out and say Actually, I've always wanted to play midfield because that then suits the agenda of the club. He's obviously going to come out as a PR thing to get everyone. Because look, he is a loved player. People want him at the club as a right back, and people, there's a fraction of the fan base who don't want to sell him. So he's going to play on that emotions. He's going to play on the fans' emotion because he knows he can. Because no one likes the club at the moment. Whereas with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, actually he can play on this and become the hero in the story and make Arsenal look like more of the villains. Well, Arteta and Edu and whoever else to be more of the villains in the story, and that's what it looked like to me. Because why today? Why now have you decided to let people know you want to play right back? It just doesn't sit right with me, and I feel like he has played it, and he's played it very well because people have eaten this. But for me, I see past that because you if he took a loan move to play right back, I would have backed him today. I would have been like, no, he's right because that's what he did. He did the better, but he wouldn't be loaned out if that was the case to begin with. Because I do think Arteta rates him as a fullback because he plays him up the left or on the right, depending on what's needed. So for me, I'm sorry, this is the probably the only time I'll defend Arsenal on their decision.
Do you think, Io, for you, is this a time for us to just remember that the media likes to jump on us and just kind of hold tight and remember that we don't always get the truth? Or do you think the reaction of the fan base is justified? Because it feels like a lot of the fan base thinks that Ainsley has been mistreated. I don't know if I necessarily feel that strongly about it, but do you feel like we just need to hold tight for a minute and see what happens? I mean, we could have a situation where, like, if Arteta were to play him at right back, would that satisfy you, or do you feel like something else needs to happen?
No, I think it definitely would satisfy me. Any young English player as part of Arsenal being given an opportunity is a massive thing for me. I'm based in London and, been supporting Arsenal since I was 9 years old. So, it's what I want to see. And I've grown up in teams, from the 90s onwards where you've had an English or British spine. So it's what I want to see. In terms of Ainsley in particular, I think we have to put it in context. He is literally 24 years old. And funnily enough, he turned 24 yesterday. So, and funnily enough, I think that kind of feeds into my perspective on the situation. I think he's literally had his birthday and he's thought to himself, what the flip is going on with my career? Like when you have your birthdays and you reassess like what is really going on. And we're talking about a situation where, a season ago he was getting his England call up, he was doing the dogs in the FA Cup. He literally was on the up and up. And since that period of time, where's he been? He's been a bit part player. He's not stepped up the way he should have, probably expecting. He's looking at younger guys around him, ESR, Saka. He's thinking, I was here before those guys. I should be stepping up. He's seen Willett go as well, So I have a bit of sympathy for Ainsley. I think, being a young man, obviously he's very headstrong, as we know, with what he's done previously with saying he wants to play midfield. I think that is factual. He did say that. Now I'm hearing mixed reports that some people are saying that he's happy to play right back somewhere else. And then obviously that makes us Gooners think, then why doesn't he want to play it for us? But then I kind of think, you look around that whole team, you look in that dressing room, Arteta is struggling. He is struggling to manage that team. It's evident how we're playing. So all of that dysfunction going on in the change room, if I'm Ainsley, I'm thinking, you know what? I need to look out for number one. And I think that's the energy Ainsley's bringing. He's thinking, I need to look out for number one. And I know for the fans, it's tough to take because it looks like, oh, here comes another shit shower. Excuse my French. And it's like another thing to really be frustrated about. But I think you look in isolation, I have sympathy with Ainsley.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, he's a young man who I feel like maybe he doesn't have the right structure around him. Maybe we know that he's had trouble, family issues in the past. Maybe he just doesn't have the right influences around him, but he's the kid and Arteta is the adult. And I would expect him to be able to turn some of these situations around and make them work to the benefit of us, the benefit of the club. Every situation that has kind of been about a young player being restless, unhappy, maybe challenging, they've been exiled. The consequence is you're no longer an Arsenal player. Ainsley Maitland-Niles put out an Instagram post and said that he wanted to play somewhere where he feels wanted. Granit Xhaka threw the armband down. He gets red cards all the time. He's twerking for Jose Mourinho. He's constantly brought back into the team, nothing happening to him. The way Pepe was treated when he got his red card is not the same energy that Granit Xhaka is getting. So why is it that certain players can be brought back in after doing stupid stuff, but Ainsley, Saliba, Guendouzi, Torreira, these players are not being brought back in? I just feel like it's clear to me from what I can see, which may not be everything, but it's just enough for me to say that he's leaving a lot to be desired in terms of his man management. And it's to the detriment of our squad. Because I feel like with Guendouzi, who I don't think is amazing, but I think is better than El Neni, with Saliba, who I think has a higher ceiling than Rob Holding and Chambers at this point, with even Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who's better than Cedric and Chambers as well, we're a better squad. We're weakening our squad because Arteta can't manage kids. That's an issue. That's an issue for me. So again, I don't think that everything is wrong with Arteta, but I think to ignore patterns is detrimental. Like, I think he needs to be able to manage the squad because he's weakening it by his choices.
But you know why that is, though? That's because he's worked, and this is where the negative side of working with Pep, because you get a false sense of security. And when Pep walks into a room, he demands that respect. Well, he doesn't even demand it. He gets it. Players are going to sit down, shut their mouths, and look at him and go, what are we going to do to turn this around? Whereas with Arteta, hasn't earned that yet. And look, football is no longer a manager's game. It's a player's game. The players demand what they want. The players get what they want. And they're the ones that are going to get coddled. And if they don't want the manager, all they do is lose the dressing room and they're gone. Whereas that's not going to happen the other way around. If a manager doesn't want a player, but the player is let's say Cristiano Ronaldo or a Lionel Messi, a Neymar, or even an Aubameyang or a Lacazette, like a leader in that dressing room, it's not going to happen. It's not as easy to get rid of. And that's where I think Arteta's got a false sense in his head that he thinks because he's worked with Pep or because of him. The thing is, his career isn't even that great. He had a good footballing career, but it wasn't amazing. He's not on the top of his game. And he thinks he walks in and demands that, but he doesn't, because he needs to earn it. But what he's done is the opposite. He's gone in and he thinks by being the strict, in a way, when you get that strict teacher that comes in for the first time and acts strict, you never win the classroom, you never win the students over. And that's what's happened here. He's gone in, he's laid the law, but rather than being like, all right, you know what, let me pull this guy up on the side and let me have a conversation with him. Maybe he has. We don't know everything that goes on. But it seems to be this sense of reality that he thinks he's Pep Guardiola, and that's what and now I'm seeing it. I know a lot of people said this, that this is how he acts, and now I'm starting to see those patterns.
I totally agree.
Go ahead, Ayo. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you hit the nail on the head. So it's as far as I'm concerned, there's delusions of grandeur with Arteta, and it was bolstered by the fact that he won the FA Cup, and it gave a false sense of reality for where we were, and what did we do, or what did KSE do? They gave him more responsibility. And I know we're going to probably talk about this later, Jess, but I think that was his undoing. And I've said this earlier to you, Jess, Arteta he has okay football IQ. He's an excellent communicator, but he has okay football IQ. Now, that is because he was a very good assistant coach at Man City, but he has never been an excellent coach, first team coach at a top level team anywhere. you know, and you cannot fast forward that kind of experience. And with Arteta, what you're seeing is that disconnect between being an assistant coach in the best franchise, arguably in Europe, if not globally, and getting high off that and being around Pep for 3 years, thinking, yeah, I've got what it takes, and coming to Arsenal, which is quite frankly one of the most dysfunctional run clubs with absentee owners, you know, who turn up to training in completely up the team that they love's kit, which, sorry, that just does my head in every time I think about that. But it's so dysfunctional, Arsenal. Vinay, you know, Edu, it's so dysfunctional. So he was never going to thrive, especially with being given more responsibilities. It just was never going to work. And I guess we're seeing that, and we're seeing that reality now. We're seeing it.
Yeah, and and I don't want to say that, you know, when we talk about Guendouzi and Saliba and stuff, that there's not context also from their point on their side, maybe not making the right decisions. But again, they're kids. And something that I feel like has been said in the past, but people have laughed it off, is Ole. Ole is a really good man manager. Sorry, he's like, he has built a culture at Man United. You can see it. The players are not dying to get out of there. They're not. They want to stay. And even somebody like Pogba, I think at one point even Bruno, players that were on the edge, that had bad moments, you know, maybe bust-ups in the locker room when Ole was going through a tough time, he was able to bring them back in. It wasn't just get out. I don't want you around because you're not agreeing with us, you know? And I just feel like that's really missing from his coaching repertoire. It's just not there. That in conjunction with the fact that he's just not, at this moment, I can probably say definitively that he's a mediocre coach, does not bode well for us. He needs to be elite in something, and I feel like he's quite mediocre in every category, and so we're getting mediocre results. But just moving forward a little bit, you know, we're being told that it's hard for us to sell our players, which I understand that because our players are not great and pandemic tax and all of that. I do think that we push on that a little bit too much, because you see something like Eddie and Nketiah, even Granit Xhaka, deals on the table. We just decide not to take them. The reports came out today that Palace are now going in the direction of Odsonne Edouard. That's who they want to go after. Eddie is somebody that they looked at. They offered us a take it or leave it for 10 million, and we decided that we wanted 20. Brighton offered us, you know, basically a discount. We'll take Eddie plus 40 for Ben White. We decided not to sell him. I was told that we need to press to get more for Eddie Nketiah. And I pushed back saying, well, he doesn't have any time left on his deal, so the other option is we don't get anything for him. And now he's injured. We were offered 10 million, we didn't take it, and now he's going to leave for free, just like Lacazette. 2 players now that we know for sure will leave Arsenal Football Club for free. One of whom we paid 50 million for, and the other one that's an academy kid that, I mean, it's just, for me, mismanagement there. So is it really that we can't sell our players' souls, or is it that we're not making the right decisions at the right times, and that's making it seem like we can't sell our players, but we just don't know what we're doing?
The thing is, if you think about let's just look at the Nketiah deal, because this is kind of what Arsenal had based their whole thing around, and they were willing to pay 10 million, and there were some reports 10 million plus add-ons. And the thing is, if you look at 20 million pounds, right, what does that get you? It gets you an Edouard, it gets you a Paston Daka, it gets you a few better players who, in my opinion, statistically on paper, I don't know how they'll translate into the Premier League, but are better than Nketiah as in strikers for today. Whereas Nketiah is maybe more of a future prospect that you're signing. And that's why they're offering 10 million, because like Crystal Palace, for example, knew Edouard's on the table for 20. So if we can get Nketiah for 10, that's better for us, because we don't have, you know, a lot of money to spend. They've already spent quite a bit of money this season in terms of Guhi on lease, and then obviously if you then spend another 20 million on a striker, it is a bit, unless they absolutely had to do it. And if we're demanding 20 million, they'd rather go for the guy who's got better stats on paper. That's just the reality, especially for a Crystal Palace. They can take that gamble because their expectations aren't as high as an Arsenal where you need someone to come in and hit the ground running. Crystal Palace can afford 1 or 2 or 3 games where they can ease their way in because they're only competing to survive, really. They're competing to be a mid-table team, well, this season anyway. And then if their ambitions grow, they'll come into European contention. And that's the problem. We think we can get a lot more money, but no one else is in for these players. I don't know where the notion we could get more for Xhaka came from because only Roma were after him. And even if I think there was another Serie A club, but even they just wanted to match the bid. They didn't actually want to give more for him. So sometimes you have to cut your losses to be able to move forward. And that's something which we seem to not understand as a whole management structure. We don't seem to be thinking, actually, we just need to get rid of him. Are we going to get 30 million? No, because that boat has sailed. Same with Bellerin. We had the opportunity to get 30 to 40, even 50 million at a time, but we decided not to sell then. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame them for that because Bellerin at that 50 million bid was arguably one of the most promising right backs in world football. So I can understand why they kept him. But the season after, and maybe even 2 seasons after that, bids were coming in for 30 million. Even last season, PSG were willing to offer 25, which is a lot of money for him, especially when you know he's got the injury crisis and he's got the ACL, which is relapsing a bit as well. And then when you look at Guendouzi, there was rumours that 30, 40 million was on the table, but we decided not to take it, which again is fine. I can understand a promising young player. You want to maybe keep him for a bit, develop him, and then you can maybe get a return on your investment at a higher rate. But the problem that we have is when these opportunities come up, I don't know why we decide to keep them without trying to get a new contract on them or extending their current deal because that always ends up happening when they've got 2 years left. But we seem to be wanting to play the long game when they've only got a season left or 2 seasons left, which doesn't ever comprehend in your final 12 months.
Also, Souls, not to cut you off, but also with no plan in how we're going to increase value. Usually these players stay, and then for some reason they never play again.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's why I say, if you're going to do it, you either try and get a contract extension in whilst the bid is still active, or you just cut it there because you know the player's not committed to your cause or anything. So I just think we need to, I think and then this isn't just Edu and Arteta, this is from, Gazidis as well, when we had Raul, when we had, previous regimes as well, even when we had Usmanov on the board and everything, we never, for the last 20 years, I think, we haven't really truly known when to cut our losses. And that's, for me, what we need to learn as a club or bring someone in who understands that.
I think we've got the right man. I think if you look at Richard Garlick, who came in and his background, contract, originally a lawyer, I understand, and from West Brom, and I know West Brom isn't the greatest club in the world, but his credentials in terms of being a quite diligent. What you need in those situations is an administrator. Somebody who's able to administer basically by setting up pathways for these types of players. So what I mean by a pathway is obviously, look at the years that they have on the contract. As you said, Sauls, when is it we're going to offer an extension? What's going to happen if we ask them to go on loan if they don't get X amount of minutes in a season? These sort of things need to be mapped out for each of these players in a consistent and a deliberate and a professional way. And I don't think we've had that. I don't think we ever transitioned into that modern approach to player contract management from the days of Dick Claw, where everything was gentlemanly, pally with agents hit you up and tell you this is the situation. You go, okay, you make a decision and you take it from there. Those days are gone. Arsenal is just nowhere near as professional as it should be in that regard, in my opinion. But I think with the likes of Richard Garlick, who's come in, and from what I've heard from people who are quite close to the club, that is definitely going to make a difference on that front. And I just wanted to make one more point, Jess. I love that point that when you mentioned Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You know what hit me? Basically, we are literally Ole Gunnar Arteta is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Cardiff City. That is literally what's happening right now at Arsenal.
Didn't they get relegated?
Well, they did get relegated, but what I mean is he's cutting his teeth in the like when it counts as a first team manager, no training wheels, nothing in the Premiership. He did it with Cardiff. It turned out badly, but he learned, and I fear that could be the direction of travel. I don't think we'll get relegated, so please nobody at me. But I do think it could be the direction of travel in terms of the results we're seeing at the moment. You know, like three games, 3 losses. And yeah, I know we're going to talk more about that later, but yeah, I'll share my thoughts then about how to counteract that.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't. There's just so much to unpack because, and I do want to talk about like Edu and Arteta, and if we can separate them a little bit, and if Arteta could be better with somebody else, we'll talk about that in just a second. Before we get off of just like the individual transfers and the outgoings, because kind of talked about Bellerin. It looks like he's a little bit stuck at the moment. It's going to be a loan. Whatever it is, it's going to be a loan with an option. Nobody's going to buy him. Nobody's going to commit to him. I think that's quite clear. A deal was supposed to get done, or we attempted to do a swap deal or something for Emerson, and we offered 10 plus Bellerin. They wanted 20 plus Bellerin. Deal fell through. He's going to Spurs now. That's just how it is. What I also know from that is that Koeman actually doesn't want Bellerin. The management wants him back. Koeman doesn't. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And Real Betis is somewhere there in the background, willing to bring him in on a loan or something. But Bellerin, if he leaves, he's going to be on a loan. But I think he does go because he's made it very, very obvious and clear that he wants to go. There's also rumors about El Neni, which I think is really, really interesting. We know Aziz has already went out on loan to Portsmouth. So at the moment we have El Neni, Thomas Partey, Xhaka, and Lokonga. That is unacceptable for me, in my opinion, from a quality standpoint and a numbers standpoint. We are an injury away from having a lower, I would say lower Premier League level midfield. Thomas Partey is not reliable at the moment, and we have to be honest about that, right? That doesn't mean that he's a bad player, doesn't mean that we don't love him. He's unreliable at the moment. So for us to go into a season with that level of midfield is catastrophic, in my opinion. So El Neni going would mean certainly that we have to bring in another midfielder. And I've seen in the past that Arteta said that he's not up for sale. He's in my plans. And I think El Neni is one of those safe bets that you have in the team. He's not going to moan and cry about more playing time. He's going to not rock the boat, which is, I feel like, the type of environment that Arteta wants. I prefer a competitive environment where people are kicking and screaming trying to get minutes. You know, so I don't know if there's going to be pushback from Arteta, but I think if any sort of bid comes in for El Neni, you have to move him on and bring in a midfielder. I just saw that a war to Arsenal is not a thing. It won't happen. But now some rumors of Bissouma have come back to the surface. 35 million for Bissouma. Even if it's a panic buy, even if it's not what you wanted to do, you have got to get that deal done. Souls, for you, how much of a band-aid would that be for you in terms of the window if we were able to bring in a Bissouma? Is it a band-aid? Is it papering over the cracks? Is it you guys were overreacting for nothing? Or do you still feel like there's going to be some residual anger even if we do bring in Bissouma because we know that the window still could have been better?
100%. I don't trust this board, to be honest with you. And I've always screamed and shouted before Arteta goes, I want Edu first gone. I want Vinay gone first before I even look at the manager, because whoever comes in is set to fail. 130 million, 150 million was spent this summer. And obviously with the sale of Willock, obviously the net spend is 130-ish million. Could we have used that money better to firstly depthen the squad, but improve the first team? 100%. Do you know what big clubs do? They put their fringe players onto the bench, like your Xhakas, like your, well, not Partey, but, you know, even for a Partey, for example, you bring in quality that replicates his ability, but then you know that you've covered his injuries if anything does happen. And that's how you build your depth, as well as put your starting 11 in contention of being a top 6, top 4 side. And that's where the problem comes in. I can't, even if they go get me a Bissouma, I still don't trust them, because why did it take you so long? And I've said this time and time again, that I'm not annoyed at the players they've brought in. I'm just annoyed that so far what we've done hasn't improved us. It categorically isn't going to improve us. Yes, they're good players. We're banking on the future. Fine, that's fine. If that's the way you want to go, that's fine. But who are they learning of? Where is the mentors? Where are the leaders in this team? We keep talking about we don't have captains, we don't have leaders, we don't have those players on the pitch that Arteta can go to. So why didn't we buy them? The thing is, you can only bank on the future if you have a current present squad that's going to get you to where you need to be. And that's where my issue's coming in. It's like, if they get a Bissouma, cool. Good parting gift. That's what it is for me. It's a very good leaving present for me. You're still going. I am not happy with the way the club's run. And that's just the way it's always going to be. Like, good, thank you for it. Thank you. I'll take that. But it's a leaving party. We'll give you a little leaving party whilst we're protesting for you to get out of our club. And you can go. And that's the way it is, man. I'm not like, because what's going to happen, right, is, okay, they've given us this window. Then, because the thing is, I'm away from the Cronkies. I can't blame the Cronkies, because they have given us money to use, whether it's the club's money, whether it's their own money out of their back pocket. The fact that we've spent this kind of money and it's been used wrong is the only reason I want them out. But if we want an owner to come in who's just going to pump money in, we've not got that, but we've got who's going to make the resources available, but just not going to employ the right people. Whereas with someone else coming in, and if it's solely money, then no. If they've shown us a know-how in another club of bringing the right people in for that club structure, then yeah, I'll more than happily entertain the idea of them taking over. But that's how my feelings are. Give us a parting gift. That's all I want.
We have a super chat here from Charlie. Thank you so much. Charlie says, "Come on, whoever thought we will win Chelsea and Man City is delusional. Tottenham is the game which shows us if Arsenal should sack Arteta." And so I think this leads really nicely into talking about Edu, Arteta, should they be lumped in together, and I guess the acceptance of the fan base that it's so, on paper, of course, it doesn't look like we should be able to beat Chelsea and Man City. But that's only if you didn't watch the game. The issue is that most people are not talking about the result. They're talking about the performance. And that's what's alarming to me. That's what signaled to me that something is not right in the back room, like in the locker room. Something is not right. Either they're not listening to Arteta, or his ideas are too complex for them to carry out, or they're just not good ideas at all. So it's not about, oh, we didn't beat Chelsea and Man City. I don't think anybody's saying that. And if they are saying that, then to me, that's misguided. It was the performance level and the acceptance that we should just say, you know what? It's okay to get battered 5-0. No fight whatsoever. It's okay, for Chambers to not out-jump Gundogan. It's okay to lose your shape. It's okay not to track runners. It's okay not to make tackles. It's okay to just get stupid red cards. It's okay not to have a single shot on goal. It's okay not to have a big chance created. It's okay to give up 5 goals. Like, it's not. I've seen worse teams have better performances against Manchester City. Wolves have lost all 3 of their games. They've played Leicester, Spurs, and who was the other team? Manchester United. And they've been better than United and Spurs in those matches. But they've lost them. They haven't scored a single goal, but they lost each game 1-0. And the performances that I saw, if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be like, okay, I think we're going to turn it around. They didn't just bottle it. They didn't just capitulate. They didn't just get a red card and take themselves out of the game. The idea that we should accept these types of performances, regardless to if we're better than the team or not, is a fundamental issue. And I think it's how we numb the fan base out to accept mediocrity. And to me, that's accepting mediocrity. 100%. That performance was unacceptable from those players. I would hope that people understand that. So what
But
do
you
you
know what
think
it
about
is?
that?
Regardless of like who's missing, there's a few things that we all as football fans, regardless of who you support, whether it's Arsenal Football Club or whether it's West Brom, right? Let's be real. There's key indicators that we look for: hard work, wanting to go out and actually perform for your club. These are just the basics. That's all I ever asked for. I'm not asking. Look, I know City was never going to be a win. If we won, I would have been like, where did this come from? But to not press, for Edison to practically play as a midfielder and not to face shots, I'm sorry, that can't happen. You've got to at least try. And then for the fact that when we go to Chelsea, we can see the fact that Reece James is a constant threat. He's constantly in wide open spaces, and we just let him have the ball. No one's tracking him. No one's running back. No one's working hard. No one's trying to cover for each other. It's that's what annoys me. I'm not saying go out there and give me Ronaldo and Messi, Neymar performances. All I'm asking for is hard work, a bit of dedication, a bit of passion. Show that you're fighting for your spot, because a lot of these players, right, are not our first team players, and they're not even fighting to get into that first team. That's, for me, is where it comes to, what are we looking at? 0 goals, 0 wins.
We
We're
don't
at the
look like
bottom.
scoring. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
where's the chances coming from? Where's the goal coming from? Who's
I mean,
creating these?
yeah, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
It's
I
not
would just
acceptable.
no, it's not acceptable. But I mean, it's hard for me to really be too hard about the Man City game because, if I was in that Man City team of those elite players and I watched our Brentford performance, let alone our Chelsea performance, like it's easy work. It's like Arsenal are easy work. And you could see that like in that game, like the way they were organized in the box in any attacking position that we had just nullified, like to the point where Cedric is just like had a perfect opportunity, informed sort of a confidence filled Arsenal. He's whipping that in quick. Someone's getting on the end of that, and that's a goal. What does he do? He sees all the Man City players, he shits himself and passes it back out. This
But
is
who
where
does that go back to, Io, though?
I think it's like I think Orbo was keeping it 100 in the post match when he
Mm-hmm.
was saying the players like they fear at the moment, like they're scared. Yeah, the players are scared. And I think that's from Brentford. I think Brentford, they never expected that kind of opposition. And since then, obviously, you have Chelsea, reigning champions, Lukaku was there, Reece James was bossing it. And then you have Man City, creme de la creme. It's just, and then 10 men at 35 minutes.
See,
It's
this is why I think this whole it was Man City, we're scared, we didn't have our best team, we were out of the game, all of that will become so much more clear when we play against Norwich and Burnley.
totally,
Because
totally.
the reality is that I don't think it's acceptable at all. I don't. And I think if the team is going out into games against Brentford away and City at home, or City away, Chelsea at home, and they don't feel like they can win any of those games, let alone compete, because I didn't even see well, let's just give it a go. I saw get me out of here as soon as possible. That comes down to the manager. And I've been asking for 18 months now, why does it feel like we're not ever ready to compete? Why do we go into games that we should be able to win looking scared? I think that comes from the manager. I think that he does not have the ability to manage them in a way that there's 2 parts to being a manager. There's the tactics and the coaching, but then there's the cheerleading part as well. Wrapping your arm around your players and say, this is what we're going to do. Comfort comes from knowing that the manager is confident in what you're doing and that you're confident in the plan. And something is not right there. So
But isn't
it's
it?
okay to... Huh? Go ahead. Yeah.
No, sorry to cut you. All I was gonna say is, but isn't it obvious from how well we played coming to the end of last season, with no pressure, no expectation, they started enjoying their football, and I was foolish enough to believe that that kind of pressure off was gonna come nicely into the new season. But I think what we saw is Brentford completely took them by surprise, and it's almost like in like 100-meter hurdles. Once you hit that first hurdle in the wrong way, that second hurdle and the subsequent hurdles, you're gonna hurt yourself. And I feel like that's what happened with Arsenal with the Brentford game. It's like they came off it like whoa, and then you got Chelsea completely did what they did, and then Man City. It's not the sort of team you want to play. We have literally played in the last 3 games 2 of the Champions League finalists, the Premier League winners, reigning champions. I know everyone knows this, but we have to put it in context, like a team without confidence. No, but what I mean is a team without confidence dealing with everything that our players have dealt
but in the same breath, we played basically the same squad, but without Lukaku last season when we were absolutely in the mud on Boxing Day, and we beat them convincingly. Beat them, and then they blamed Lampard on that. Then go into the next second leg, well, not second leg, the second facing, and we beat them again under Tuchel this time. Yeah. So it's not, for me, it's how have we gone from convincingly beating them to looking like we're never going to beat them? Like now,
they're not confident in the manager. For me, I think it's a combination of not feeling confident in the squad. I know Aubameyang probably looked behind him and said, "Woo, Chambers holding, we're finished." So it's a combination, I think, of not being confident in each other, but also not being confident in the manager. And as much as we know that this is the issue, they're not confident. They don't have this. They don't have that. They're not confident in the plan. There's a source to that. And there's somebody that's being paid to make sure that that's not happening. And that's Mikel Arteta. So I hear the context, I get it. But the buck has to stop with somebody. It can't just be this issue that's in the air that's never going to get solved. And again, we get to Norwich. We're going to have certain players back. It's going to be after international break. And it'll all become more clear. Maybe it's a blip. I personally saw players not playing for the manager. And I stand by that. But Mark Neighbor put in a nice super chat. Thank you so much. Mark Neighbor says, I accept as long as the club is still alive and I am old and gray. That is all that matters to me. I accept as long. Okay. Trophies, top 4, come and go. The badge above all. God help us if we supported a team in League 2. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't think that, in the end of the day, this is why I asked the question, on Twitter, what does backing the club mean to people? And everybody, like the majority of the answers were the same, backing the club, supporting the club through thick and thin. And I don't think what we're doing at the moment, which is being critical or being upset over our club being in decline, that's what it is, signifies a lack of backing the club. Now, when you start to abuse players and you start, doing that, I think that's more where we're getting into dangerous territory. But if we go down to League 2 and stuff like that, the fans that were just here for the glory days, they won't support the club anymore. It is what it is.
Hey, not but just the ones here for the glory days, to be honest.
It'll be a lot of people, So I hear what you're saying, but it is what it is, we're just in a moment where people are really starting to get afraid about what they're seeing, and I really don't blame them, but let's talk about Edu. I mean, Ray Parler apparently said he got a text message from Mark Overmars saying that he wants to come back to the club. AFC Bell says maybe not in this direct way of saying it, but in the next couple of hours, we may hear some rumors about top executives at Arsenal, maybe some shifting, maybe whatever, some big things happening. With me, I don't know where Edu starts and Arteta ends, because what I'm under the impression of is that Arteta is involved in transfers. That's what's been reported. He's a mini Wenger in that respect. So when things are going good, his talent idea is on point. When things are going bad, our people that like Arteta want to separate him and say it's just Edu. So I always connect them together because I know Arteta is involved at some level. But we talked about the other day, I think both of them need to go. But at the very least, Edu needs to go. I think he's failed. Like, unequivocally failure, needs to go, not good enough. But you think that maybe Arteta just needs somebody more senior above him. Like maybe an Overmars comes in and he's fine. So
Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say
Clear it up.
I actually don't know. I don't even think the Overmars rumors floated my boat. I don't, I know Overmars has done some decent stuff over there, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. I mean, for me, it needs to be like a Ragnick, like a Luis Campos, and the thing about that as well, which is remember, like about was it 4 or 5 months ago, early spring, Edu was saying that he wants Campos coming in. Like, how does that make sense? Like, how can you be a bona fide director of football operations, but then you want somebody else to come in and basically do your job? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that to me was a red flag about Edu. I think he's just not cut out. You look at his CV, pretty much like Arteta's, very inexperienced novice, and he's just not going to deliver what we want. And right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's him who's going to get the sack, because he seems very good at spending money, but he's really struggling to make money, i.e., moving players on. And we talked about that in our WhatsApp chat about the fact that he just lacks that almost like, I work in sales and
he doesn't know what he's doing, bro.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me like he knows how to do deals.
So
Basically,
clear.
he doesn't strike me like he knows how to do deals. He doesn't make people feel good about doing a deal with him, even when the deal potentially looks more beneficial for him than them. But ultimately, it's about selling a vision. Let's take Eddie Nketiah as an example. Crystal Palace, South London club. I live 15 minutes walk from Crystal Palace. I haven't lived here all my life, so that's why I'm not a Palace fan. Let's not, don't at me. But anyway, I live 15 minutes walk from Crystal Palace. Eddie Nketiah grew up near where I grew up, in further in southeast, more east towards Lewisham. He grew up around there. He's a South London boy. Where he grew up is like a 20-30 minute drive from Crystal Palace. All of these things you can sell to make a case to make Crystal Palace feel good about putting the money down for Eddie Nketiah. You can work out a deal where you can say, okay, add-ons as well. You just make people feel good about doing a deal. And I look at Edu, I do not think he's that guy to be able to do a deal the way we need somebody who's good at doing deals. I don't see it with him.
So do you think Arteta and Edu should be lumped together, or do you think there's room for like maybe an Overmars or just another director of football? I think Edu, he's gonna go. Like I cannot imagine he gets through this window and doesn't leave. So whether it's Overmars or not, do you think that there's light for Arteta if you bring in a new DOF, or do you think there's too many issues with having two inexperienced people there?
No, it's having too many inexperienced people. I've said it before. The owner's inexperience in the footballing world, not in a managerial, not in a business sense. Then you look at Vinay, who's not really ever been a CEO before, but yet he's the CEO of Arsenal. Then you look at the director of football in Edu, again another novice. Then you look at Arteta, another novice. There isn't another top six or even a top European side who plays top flight football, who's competing, that has a novice in every single key area of their managerial structure. And that's where the issue comes in. You can have an Arteta. There is nothing wrong with having Arteta or employing Arteta if you've got experienced people behind him to make those decisions, saying, look, this player isn't right for what you're looking for. Trust me, this is who you want, because we've been there, we've done that. And, that 130, 150 million pounds that we have spent this summer would be so much better spent. I'll give you an actual real life scenario of this. Joan Laporte obviously bought in current Barcelona president, but obviously was Barcelona president previously, bought in Pep Guardiola to be the successor of his project and to be the face and the manager of his project under Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, basically promoting the La Masia boys because he was a Barcelona B coach. Very inexperienced within the sector of being a first team manager, but he's come in, he's the only manager to ever win 8 trophies in a calendar year, the only manager yet to do it. Bayern Munich still to do it, and He won Barcelona their first ever treble with a team that was built on him, built in his Barcelona academy that he then promoted a lot of and gave a lot of faith to. So an inexperienced manager can work as long as you have an experienced board and a backroom behind him, because then they
100%.
can pick their little slacks up and actually, and the thing is, they can also then guide the manager and be like, look, okay, you know what, and they can then come in and go into the dressing room. And so, like, right now what we have is a crisis situation that no one's dealt with before, and
Oh, yeah.
that's where the issues come in. But if someone that's got experience, even a good level of experience, goes in and sorts this out for Arteta and goes, look, it's fine, but this is how you deal with it. Whereas with, I don't trust Edu to go in and convince Aubameyang to get back on his side, because no one respects him. And then and that's where I think that is it. You can have Arteta, but you can't have Arteta, Edu, and Vinay.
Yeah.
Something has to give way.
Totally. And also, you need somebody that we all know Arteta is hard-headed. And in the comments, I've seen people, and I agree, he's arrogant. He believes in his own ability. And, you know, I don't think that's necessarily a bad quality. I wouldn't even call it arrogant. It's overconfidence. I don't think he's arrogant. I think he's overconfident. And for him to deal with that overconfidence is to have somebody to report to that he respects, and he has to listen to their point of view because they've been there, they've done that. Ragnick, he's been there, he's done that. Campos, he's been there, he's done that. Even Arsene Wenger, I know it'll be hard in terms of Wenger maybe getting a bit too hands into the cookies jar, but ultimately Arteta has been there and done that. Somebody needs to hold him to account and challenge every decision he makes from a coaching point of view, because I think when he was a coach and he focused on that, he went from being a good assistant coach to potentially being a good coach. All of a sudden, in that space of being a good coach of a few months, he was given a broader remit, a broader brief to be a manager. And it's clear he's out of his depth. And Edu is not the guy to lighten the load. He's just not the guy to do that. So I'm totally with you, Souls. For me, I'm done with Edu. I want Edu gone. I want him gone. He's like Vinay. He got football responsibilities. I bet even Vinay thinks, you know what, fam? I don't want none of that. I just want to make money and do the commercial deals and help the club run the club as a business. That's what I want to focus on. So Vinay does that. Somebody comes in as a sort of football chairman, so to speak, and oversees the strategy and creates a strategy alongside Arteta, and then Arteta shows him how he's going to execute on the strategy. So almost like a chairman CEO relationship in business. That's what I think, how you would then see things get back on track for Arteta, in my opinion.
I've kind of already made my decision on Arteta. And again, I'm totally okay with if he turns it around and becomes this guy saying I was wrong. 100%. I just have a very strong feeling that with where we are, I would love to see another manager come in and grab a hold of this project and make it tick. I think Arteta's inexperience is really hurting us, and we're getting there's a lot of Arteta tax here for me that I see, right? What I will say is that if they were to keep Arteta, which I think they will, for some reason I feel like they will get rid of Edu. I think they're less committed to Edu than they are to Arteta. I think they really believe in Arteta, which could be a big issue, but I'll leave it alone. If they do get rid of Edu and they bring somebody else in, what I would like to see is that person to be in charge, not Arteta. Because the thing about having Arteta being so hands-on with everything, which he is, it's Edu and Arteta running things. I think people really, they're too light-handed with it. Arteta is involved. I think what you need is a DOF that is going to say, I'm going to create the vision of the club. Josh, you sit down. You don't know what you're doing. Vinay, go away. I'm going to create the vision for the club based on what I think is best, the best way going forward. And then I'll decide whether Arteta fits that vision or not. And then I'll sack him or bring in somebody else, right? I think that's the best way to go about it. I personally feel like Arteta doesn't want oversight. I think he wants the Arsene role where he can just kind of do everything. And because as soon as you put a DOF in there, the clock starts ticking on him a lot quicker. And I would prefer the person in between. I prefer somebody in between the Cronkies and Arteta. I think Arteta is too close to the Cronkies and he's getting too much rope because they like him so much. Because he fits their business model. The Cronkies want a young coach. They want that. So I think it's almost like manipulative to have him so close. Put somebody in between them that is the point person between the Cronkies and Arteta and says, look, I'm going to deal with it. And then I'd feel comfortable. If an Overmars came in, a Ragnick came in, a Luis Campos came in, and they were going to decide whether or not Arteta's good enough and they'd sack him, that's perfectly fine because I don't think he'd last. I don't think he'd last with the DOF over him. I personally feel like he doesn't want oversight because he knows that he's making it up as he goes. That's just me, though. But I want to know.
He's in free fall, though. He's in free fall, isn't he? So he's not really. If you were in his put yourself in his position, Jess. Like he is literally in free fall at the moment. What has he got to lose? Wouldn't you rather keep your job and have somebody that can potentially help you than continue to be in free fall and just be a slave to your own ego?
Well,
I don't think
Arsene
he's that
didn't want a
stupid.
DOF. Arsene didn't want a DOF, and I think they're very. But Arteta, you just said Arteta views himself in that same vein. He believes that he is that level of manager. You said
the results are showing him. The results are showing him.
But I don't think. I think he believes that this is just about all the other things around him. But I think it's more involvement with him. And so, okay, let me read the super chat. Mark Neighbor says, thank you so much for your super chat. He says, and this is why Fergie Wenger never had DOF. Most clubs do not have one. It was some big idea created from Europe and the US general manager. It never worked here. Only a handful of clubs have a DOF. I hear that, but I feel with an inexperienced manager, you better have one.
No. The reason they never had one before was because international transfers never usually used to be a thing. International brand sponsorships and the money that was involved in football was so much little, and it was such a local and more community-based game. But obviously now it's become a global enterprise, and you do then have to bring in people who can structure these deals, bring you money in. And unfortunately, someone like even Wenger had a DOF, whether he liked it or not. Well, maybe not in the sense that we see right now, but he had someone to oversee these sponsorship deals because managers aren't meant to do that. They are literally responsible for on-pitch performances and making sure that the playing squad is being done, and everything else is done by, in essence, a CEO or a director of football or an owner who would oversee this. So maybe not the title, but that role was definitely there in the modern day football. Otherwise, you'd find yourself in administration.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Sauls, like at the end of the day, Wenger also grew into that role kind of partly because David Dean left. And if you notice, that coincided with our loss of real dominance as a top team, So let's not act like a DOF is not important. David Dean was our DOF in our most glorious period in recent times. So when he went and we didn't have him, he was vice chairman, but he had quite a powerful voice. He was quite hands-on. The guy loved the club. He was Arsenal through and through. And he was, more importantly, he was a top businessman. He was a top commercial mind. So he balanced, like you said, the advent of more international transfers. He got the Bergkamp deal over the line. He got these deals done in a time where it was just only coming into that. It was in the infancy in the Premier League. So I think it's disingenuous not to dish you, Mark, but I think it is in football. It's becoming more of a thing. Tottenham have it now, and I'm not saying that's why they're successful, but they see that's the way forward. And I think for us, we do need a competent DOF as oversight over Arteta. Somebody, because Arteta, in my opinion, doesn't know what he doesn't know. That's how overconfident he is. And he does need somebody to hold him to account rather than just the critique, people saying Arteta route, this and that. He is good coaching material with the potential to be great. Let's not get it twisted. A year ago, we were all hyped once he won the FA Cup. Let's not just turn on him. Let's not be corny. Yeah. Let's look at what is actually going on. A man doesn't just go from that potential to garbage. You know, there's a lot of moving parts here, Gooners. And I think what we need to really do is say, you know what, Arteta, you're doing too much. Too much is on it for you. We need to give you the right structure. And I think me and you, Jess, we've been having this conversation. I guess the real point is, will KSC have that mindset? Are they capable of looking at what really needs to be done, or the easy thing, sacking him, the fans get happy for a short period of time, and then we get a new manager who faces the same obstacles in 18 months' time?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hear that. And again, like, if it came down to it and they were like, we're just going to get rid of Edu, that's perfectly fine. It's just, there has to be some standards attached to Arteta. It cannot be acceptable to churn out these types of results and to throw away points just because. I mean, it just doesn't sit right with me. But you guys let us know in the chat box, who do you think needs to go? You know, is it Arteta, Edu, Vinai, all three? Let us know where you think the majority of the blame lies, or at least what do you think would make the biggest impact? You know, a new manager, a new DOF, both, you know, because I think Edu is a huge issue. You know, I'm actually looking at him more than Arteta. I do not like the manner in which we're losing, and I don't like that. I don't think that the players are playing for him, but this window has been crazy bad. Keenan says, Arteta is playing a dangerous game. He's arrogant and doesn't care that we are in free fall. If he did, he would have relaxed his tactics to win games. And I think he's just lost. You know, I think the season has started in a way that me and Souls and I have talked about this several times, and there's pushback, but it's true. Arteta he's in a position now, and I think he's the type of manager in a career, where he is in his career, he's the type of manager that needs things to be perfect to get things done. He has not built up the ability or enough of that. You know, when you do something enough times, you start to be able to problem solve. He's in a position where he has to have these perfect players there to get the results. And the wind has to be blowing in the right direction. The temperature has to be perfect. It kind of has to be that for him, you know? So right now, I just think he's in a place where all or nothing, got cameras in his face. The window is horrendous. He didn't have the right players brought in. His key players got COVID or injured. And he played Brentford on the first day, and they capitulated, you know? And he's not able to control things with the away fans and stuff now. He's not going to be able to stand there on the sideline and bark orders and you know, get people to do what he wants. He's just too inexperienced to be able to maneuver and adjust. And I also think he's learned from a couple of managers that have kind of been that way anyway. Pep is plan A and do plan A better. Arsene usually waited until the very last minute to make changes. This is how he learned. So until he gets the perfect players and I think improves, he's gonna suffer for it, you know. But that's kind of where he is at the moment, and I don't know if we should be dealing with that in decline. But some people want to give him more time. That's perfectly fine. I think another manager that could just kind of grab hold and stop us from just going into the spiral would be nice, because I feel like we're spiraling. You know, I really do. Let's see. You guys want to go ahead and throw some questions into the chat? We can do a couple more minutes of questions before we get out of here. If you guys want to talk about transfers, you want to talk about Edu, Arteta, whatever, just go ahead and put a question, like the Q in front of it, so it's obvious that it's a question.
I saw a message actually that I really liked that from sorry, go for it.
Hold on real quick. I just want to read the super chat from Mark. Thank you so much for your super chat. Mark says, until everyone has the same reason for sacking players bought, money in with Vinai, performance, passion on the pitch, no one is on the same page. Yeah, true. I mean, you're not wrong about that. Mark also says, let's get the fans in order first, all singing from the same hymn sheet before we start chopping and changing when the fans are all over the shop as well. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, like, if you're trying to say that the fans need to all be on the same page before the club makes changes or decides what they want to do. I don't think they need to be thinking about us. I think they need to be figuring out how to, if we're winning games and if we're going in a direction that I think fans can sense that we are, which I don't think we can sense that at the moment, I think the fans will naturally get in line. We'll start singing from the same hymn sheet once we feel like we're going in the right direction. And I think we can all sense that something is not right, but I would like the fans to be on the same page. I just think it's unlikely as long as Arsenal are sliding, to be honest. Let's see. Dev M says, who would you bring in to replace Arteta? Souls, do you have any ideas about that? I mean, you said Luis Enrique. I saw somebody say Mancini earlier, and I thought he would never come to Arsenal. I mean, that would be the level of manager that we need to bring in, a Mancini, a Luis Enrique, a Conte. That would get the fans thinking that we're going in the right direction. If you bring in a Potter or somebody like that, although I do think that they would get more out of this group, do you think it's that level of manager that we need to be going for, those Souls?
100%. I think for me, it's either Luis Enrique, Eric Ten Hag. The reason why I'm not so much in favour of Conte is just because of how the team's built. If you bring a Conte in, he doesn't really have the players to be able to build his structure. He'll need a window or two to be able to really push this team forward. And that's why that's the only reason I say it, is because you do have to look at what you have and what's going to come in and be able to use their philosophy for the time being to be able to get us back to where we need to be. Conte doesn't have that. So that's why for me it's a Luis Enrique, Eric Ten Hag. I think Frankie Marsh has been in the conversation as well. So someone like that, just someone that's got a similar mindset, but that is a bit more experienced, so that when the shit hits the fan, they know how to get out of it. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. There's a question here from Ryan basically saying, Jess, you say you want a new manager, but who would come into this mess? Do you think that that's valid, Io?
Yeah, I do. I do think it's very valid, and that's why I'm less inclined to get rid of Mikel Arteta. You know, I feel like ultimately it's a house with dodgy foundations, and trying to put brand new windows on the house doesn't change that, in my opinion. So I really, like, we can sit here and speculate, and we just know the ones who can truly make a difference, who just have that kind of, X factor, they're not going to come to Arsenal right now. And therefore we need to, there's more ways to skin a cat. We need to go around it the way we are doing, with a young coach who has someone who oversight is paramount, and he respects, and they work in that kind of partnership. Because all I think Arteta needs to focus on is on the coaching, investing time in coaching, in managing. I know people say, oh, well, he's just not a great man manager. Again, I don't think that happened overnight. I think the pressures of the overall situation has caused him to maybe have too much on his plate and not devote enough time to man management. But I think once you make him primarily a coach, a demotion of sorts, I know he's not going to be happy about it, but once you make him primarily a coach, with some say, but with ultimate oversight by a DOF who is respected in Europe, who can get deals done, who can challenge him on certain things, who can sit down with him after the Man City game and just have that candid conversation, not a beef thing, but just basically, what do you think, and challenge that, then I think, that's the way forward, in my opinion. Not a new coach or manager. So
yeah, I hear you. Hey, Gal's here. Hey, Gal, how are you?
Hey, bro. Hey, Jess. How's everybody? Souls, my guy. Did I hear you correctly? Did you just say not a new coach, but everything else first?
Yeah, no, I don't want a new coach. I want to keep with Arteta, but I want somebody overseeing Arteta and lightening the load from Arteta as well.
Okay. Let me tell you something. If you have a business or a company or anything, and you have your customer service agents and you have the CEOs and everyone working behind them also making a mess, the first thing you do to try to get an improvement and upturn in your work is you remove those customer service agents. In this case would be the players, right? But if the players are not performing well, and we've done that already, we've done an overhaul on the players, and we still have had Arteta for a while, and he hasn't improved. Now you have to look at the manager who's managing those customer service agents, which are the players. So now Arteta is the one that I'm looking at, because I've looked at the players and I've given Arteta so many times. We've given Arsene Wenger more stick than we gave Arteta recently, if you really think about it. And it's like he has no credit in the bank besides one FA Cup. I'm sorry, mate, but I just disagree with that premise that Arteta is the guy who's going to get this turned around. Yes, he got it turned around in January for him, but it wasn't enough to get us to top four or even get us close to getting higher up the table. We still finish in the same position. So I think the fact that we've seen a year or almost 2 years of, what is it now? Almost 2 years if it comes to January.
Yeah.
So at this point, we've seen enough evidence that Arteta is not the guy to progress us. We need to look to progress and not waste away with our young talent, because more time spent with in a rebuild, we're going to lose Bukayo Saka, we're going to lose Smith Rowe, and we're going to lose these guys who are only shining lights. And you cannot build a foundation without having somebody to actually manage that foundation. I watched videos of Thomas Tuchel in Mainz. I don't know if you guys seen me tweet it out today, but he instills something in his players by letting them know in training. I've never seen Arteta in training fully, because they don't show us everything. But from what I've seen in training looks like a joke. Training looks like they don't take him serious. It looks like at times our manager is almost, it's like a daycare where he's just taking care of what he can do, and he's making sure everybody knows what they're doing. Now, it's kind of rich coming from me, who just Arteta in like a couple months back. But Villarreal was an eye opener, and things are not going to get better unless you continuously make changes throughout the pyramid. And that is the players. We've made changes to the players. We now have to look at Arteta. We have to look at Edu. We have to look at Vinay, and we also have to look at the owner. But at this point, the thing that we can impact the most is that first change, which is the manager. You can't tell me these players cannot get more than one shot against Man City. You cannot tell me these players cannot defend against corners and set pieces better. We've seen it before. The same players have defended corners and set pieces better. The same players have gotten an FA Cup win. We have decent players. They're just not performing to the level. And I think it was a hybrid. What's the hybrid channel on YouTube?
Hybrid Squad.
She said, no, the female host from that channel said it perfectly. Arteta, this team has taken up all of Arteta's bad traits and none of the good ones. He said culture change. What culture change? Our culture has gotten worse. We have people going to concerts the night before. We have somebody screaming and crying on Instagram saying, "I need help. Get me out of this club." That's how bad it is. So, bro.
No, but bro. How do we? Okay. This is my rationale. Everything you say makes sense to me. And as I said, if we were to get a top manager, if we were linked to a top manager, I would say thanks, but no thanks to Arteta.
I have an answer to that.
With the potential crop of coaches, managers we're linked to, how do we know we are not going to be in the same place where we are now in 18 months, slightly better, hopefully slightly better, because right now we look at the bottom of the table. But
if you don't try, you will never succeed. We've tried to keep the continuity and consistency. It's made it worse. You cannot be consistent and get continuity or gain any type of traction to get back to where you want to get to. That we're basically acting like insane people, because if you continue to try doing the same thing, it's a definition of insanity. You have to try to change, and if it means sack a manager again in the next summer, or sack a manager again before the season ends, I'm willing to do that at this point, because I've realized that is the way we have to act. We have to continue to keep sacking managers, keep bringing in people until we can get somebody who has the right identity. And if we're going to get a manager, we have to do the proper due diligence and look at their playing style as a manager, their history, and look at their CV. Because if you look at Arteta's CV, he doesn't have one. If you look at Vinay's CV, he went from oil trader to CEO. If you look at Edu, he went from a player to managing over doing the national team job to coming into the Premier League. And he was an understudy at the beginning. He was not the main guy. And he just got promoted because the guy above him got sacked due to some dodgy dealings. So at this point, we don't actually have anybody proper running our club from the beginning to the end. So why are you concerned about who's going to come in? Because whoever is going to come in regardless,
No, because I
don't-
think. Sorry, go for it. Just.
All I was gonna say is that I still feel like there's a real lack of evidence that would suggest that Arteta is the guy, like, that we were marketed. Like, the thing about Arsenal is they're really good at PR and marketing. He's young, he's bright, he's worked with all these young players and all this. Have you seen any real growth from any of our young players? I mean, we talked about him helping Mustafi and Holding get a little bit better, but ultimately they both regressed before, Mustafi left, and then Holding is nowhere near as good as he was last season. So for me, it's like there's no evidence that's telling me, based on results, what I'm seeing from the players in terms of their progression, like our young players are not getting better. Most of our best players have declined. It's just, what is the sense? Like, what is somebody seeing that is telling us that after 18 months, and I get that there's COVID, there's pandemic, there's this, there's that, but even from a players getting better standpoint, he's still practicing with these players. They're not getting any better. So I just don't see how changing the manager would be threatening to our club. Like, I just don't see it. I think we have a phobia of it because we haven't done it before. We don't want to be Manchester United, Chelsea, changing our managers. But look at where they are and look at where we are. Like, changing the manager is not the end of the world. I would understand more if there was something that you were seeing that you could tell me for sure gives you an indication that he could potentially be the guy. That would, like, if somebody could give me a valid reason why, besides after Boxing Day, because the turnaround, if we're really honest with ourselves, was 15th to 8th. And there were many opportunities in the second half of the season to get top 4, to get top 6, and he still didn't get that. We're in 20th, and people are telling me that the turnaround is on. What is the precedent of a young manager, a novice manager, getting a team from 20th up to Europa League? What is it? So I don't.
Well,
I don't get
I think
it.
no, but Jess, come on, let's. We're 3 games in to a 38 game season. Like, let's give it some context, Jess. Yeah. I know what you're saying. No, but you're saying 20th, like, we're 20 games into the season. We're 3 games into the season. Like, in another 10, let's say, argument's sake, the next so we've had 3 games to 7 games. Let's say, for argument's sake, we win 4 of those games, maybe draw a couple more and lose 1 more. The narrative changes completely. So I think we need to take a step back a little bit. I get how
But that's why I'm saying everything will change, or we'll know more when we play against Norwich and we play against Burnley. I don't think the turnaround is as on as other people are saying. Because what I'm not seeing is we just don't have our best players. I'm seeing people, they're not playing for the manager. He's lost something. That's what I'm saying. So that's fine, though.
Because on one hand, you're saying Burnley, Norwich game, we'll know. On the other hand, you're saying you want Arteta to be sacked now. This is what I don't understand, because I feel like you either have to say enough is enough now, in which case most people will admit
that's what I'm saying.
Let me ask.
I think enough is enough now. But what I'm saying is that we will know more in terms of everybody telling me that the turnaround is on after Norwich and Burnley. If these boys are not playing for the manager, we will know then, because there will be players back. We'll be playing against teams that we should be beating. That's the whole thing. We're not supposed to beat Manchester United.
If we get 6 points there, you're going to go. If we get 6 points, sorry to cut. If we get 6 points from those games, are you then going to go from Arteta out to Arteta in? Is that what you're saying?
Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, go ahead. I'm not going to switch just because of that.
Why do we always have to be 1 game away from a crisis? Or we're currently in a crisis, but we don't seem to have already.
We're in a transition period, bro. We're in a transition period.
I'm sorry, but respectfully, they're selling us a dream, because they know that this is how it is in North American sports, where you have a draft system and you understand and you wait, you have patience. Do you know where trust the process came from? The 76ers. They intentionally lost for 3 years to be the worst team in the NBA. And they expect us to trust the process and be one of the worst teams in the Premier League out of the top 6 teams when we have more investment. Let me tell you something. The players who we recently cut off our wage bill from January till now get paid more than Leicester's whole entire squad last season. Take that in, how bad the mismanagement is. I'm not excusing Arteta of all the mismanagement. Some of it's bigger than him, but he, as a man and a manager who's controlling the dressing room, is getting the worst performances out of all his players. If we had lesser managers who have at least experience, they've been there before, and the worst, and even worse than that is, he's playing games and he's losing in the first 10 minutes and he's not even trying to come back and win the game. At least I respected Emery because he changed it up and tried to come back and win the game. I'm not saying Emery was the great manager and he was good to stay at Arsenal, but he didn't concede games. He might have conceded that Brighton game based on his lineup, but Arteta does that 5 games out of every season. He just loses the game based off his own lineups and his own mismanagement.
Do you know what the reality is, right? On the AO, when you've asked that, what would change our opinions from Arteta out to in? Beating Spurs, beating Leicester, beating Liverpool, and beating United. Because for me, all right, maybe not Liverpool. I'll let him have Liverpool. But United, because we've beaten them. We've beaten them. We've gotten 6 points last season. So I don't want that. Leicester, we should be able to beat. Tottenham, we should be able to beat. And I want competitive matches. I want to be able to see that this guy's got
really the thing, right?
Yeah.
We have to be competitive. We're not competitive under this manager for large parts of seasons. Like, come on, you guys. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But guys, come on.
What do you have to see? What do you have to see to say you want him out?
What do I have to see? Well, obviously, if I'm not seeing 3 points, then, for me personally, at the start of the season, I said I will not form a considered view until 10 games in to be able to say things are going to plan. Because I don't want to be this guy that, and I feel for George because he was this guy the other day where you almost feel like you're blindly defending Arteta. I know what Arteta's flaws are, and I am as frustrated as anybody else. But at the same time, it's about how do you get what we all want, which is the team to be successful. I am not convinced just getting rid of Arteta and then getting a new manager in is going to lead to prolonged, long-term, sustained success. That's all I'm interested in. Now, I know some people are like, I don't like this. I want a turnaround and I want to uptick. Well, you did get that in sorts when Emery was sacked and Arteta came in. Okay, yeah, we know it wasn't amazing, but still, we won the FA Cup. And to now say you want to do that again, I just think it's not sustainable. I think you need to just look at the problem slightly differently. That's just my opinion.
But most of what I'm talking about is about performances. I'm not asking for him to beat every single team. I'm asking, well, first of all, the minimum requirement for an Arsenal manager at this point should be Europe. So there has to be some minimal requirement. And I think based on where he is, and the fact that I really do think we're going to lose more games than what people think, he may not make that. But if we're more competitive and we actually put in performances, no matter who the opposition is, you can take that. My issue with Man City and Chelsea is not that I thought we were going to win those games. I thought we optimistically would get 4 out of those games, out of the first 3. And optimistic was the point. But what I didn't count on was for us to just lay down and take it. And that's exactly what it was. I'm sorry. I saw it with my own 2 eyeballs. So what Cole P says, performances, they need to turn over. Like, we need more. Yeah. We need to be able to compete. He needs to get these boys up to play. If you watch Wolves, there's a way to lose 3 games against competitive opposition and not look like idiots, Mark Neighbor says, thank you so much for your super chat. I love George. He talks so much sense on your channel, which he does. But his thinking, we need a whole team back fit to beat Norwich, is borderline ridiculous. And I mean, we gave a lot of slack for the Brentford thing. I know that we didn't have our starting strikers, so it is what it is. But quite frankly, we did have enough quality in our team, I think, to actually create a chance. And I think we were really, really passive on that. Norwich will be the test. We'll have players back. It's a team that we can beat. And if the performance level is not up there, and I still see players not playing for the manager, I think we need to consider maybe removing him. If
We're
things
not
turn
losing to Norwich. We're not losing to
But
Norwich.
see,
I'm
that's
telling
I
everyone.
think
We're
that's the
not.
thing is that
We are
there's a
not.
section of the
We're not.
fan base that thinks that we cannot lose to Norwich, and I'm
We are not
saying we
losing to Norwich,
absolutely
Jess.
can because
We
we've done it
won't. We won't.
before.
We won't.
Word on everything I own. We are not losing to Norwich. We just aren't.
But
I'm sorry. We're
forget
not.
about that. Forget about not losing to Norwich. Why are we even in a position where we're arguing if we're going to lose to the team who just got promoted? Look at the
It's
level.
because
How,
Because we're in a
we've
process.
really
No, because we're in a process, guys. We're in a
No,
process.
no. Process or
was
not?
this part of the
A
plan?
promoted side. Come on, man. Like
Was this
that.
part of the plan, though? Was this part of the plan? Be honest. Was this part of the plan to be in this kind of situation this early in the season?
If you hire a guy who all he has to his name is 3 years as assistant coach under the best manager in the world, arguably in Pep, then to me it's part of the process. I
To
did
lose
not
the
think.
promoted side.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't think we
I'll
want
make
to.
it make
I don't.
sense.
No. I don't think. No, I just
If
said
we
I don't
lose,
think we're
though,
gonna lose
if
to
we
Norwich.
lose, though, are you going to be
If we lose, we ain't losing. Sorry.
No, but if we
Yeah,
lose,
see, that's
we ain't
it.
losing.
That's
No, it's
it.
not about if we lose. We ain't
That's
losing.
it.
I'm
what
sorry.
if we do, though?
No, we aren't losing. We are not.
I know,
losing
but
to
just
Norwich.
hypothetically, what if we do?
There's no. I can't have that kind of.
See that you're in
hypothesis.
denial, and that's perfectly
No, I
fine.
just can't. I can't.
That's
do- I
perfectly fine.
cannot-
I get it.
To do that,
Yeah.
I cannot literally
Yeah.
say how are we gonna lose to Norwich at
Okay,
home.
what about if the performance is not to the level, even though we win? What if the performance is not to the level and we struggle and we just nick it?
The process? That's the process to me. You build up confidence. You win, you get 3 points. Everybody's hugging each other, kissing each other, slightly embarrassing, but you're building up confidence to go into the next game. Burnley, you get 3 points there. You're building up Spurs. You hopefully get 3 points there, or you get a draw. I think we'll probably get a draw there. It's just about rebuilding these guys' confidence. I think these guys are short of confidence.
I want to agree with you. We all probably want to back everyone who's in charge. We all want to succeed. We want the club to succeed, but I don't see how the club is going to succeed with the same thing going on consistently. I don't get me wrong. I backed Arteta the whole time, but it's gotten to a point where I can see that the players are not playing. It's not any more tenable to continue with the same person. We have to change something, and it's getting to a point where we won't be able to change the players. Mid-season, after tomorrow, we won't be able to change any players. The only change we'll be able to make is the manager. And if we're continuing like this, and we lose to Tottenham, we lose to Burnley maybe, we don't lose to Norwich, and we only after 5 games we only have 3 points. No, after 6 games we only have 3 points, and we're still in the bottom half of the table. I'm sorry, at that point he's a dead man walking. He's been a dead man walking since Villarreal.
I mean, we've been in a position where, we're kind of hoping that Arteta turns it around basically the entire time, because he's been kind of like on the bubble this entire time. He's never been in a secure position. He barely got there last season, so we'll see. I do think if he doesn't beat Norwich and Burnley, he's gone. Like, I cannot imagine us continuing on with him if we don't do that. But people are talking about is a performance, is a result, and for me it's are we competitive? But then he still has to meet the minimum requirement of European football, and it just is what it is. But we'll see what happens. There's so much going on. I just saw that Odsonne Edouard is confirmed going to Crystal Palace again. Edu, what are you doing? Or Edu. Somebody just emailed me. It's so funny. People email me and say, Jess, this is how you pronounce things. It's Edu, not Edu. I just got that, Camavinga on his way to Real Madrid. Perfect. We don't have to see him in the Premier League. Good. Awar looks off, and we'll see if the club is able to get Bissouma over the line for a makeup.
Where's the Awar off to?
He's just going to stay at Lyon, I think.
Oh, is he staying there? Okay.
I think he's just going to stay. If he does end up somewhere, I mean, hopefully it's just not Spurs. All right, you guys, there's about 300 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it, consider becoming a member. Tomorrow, it's going to be a deadline day stream. I have to figure out when I'm going to start it because I have to be on the Arsenal Vision stream, and then I'll figure out when I'm going to come onto ours. It'll probably be a little bit later, and then we'll just roll through the whole thing and then see where we end up, see if we end up bringing any players in. So I want to thank Ayo for being here. Haven't been here in a while.
No, it's
We'll
been a
bring you
pleasure.
back
Well
unless
done.
everybody hates you. I don't know. I don't know. We'll bring you back. I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you so
Felt
much,
like
Gal,
mini
for
George today.
yeah, you're definitely mini George today. But hey, George will appreciate you standing in for him today. Igal, thank you so much for popping in. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on EGTV on my YouTube channel. You guys, if you don't already know that, but thanks, Jess.
Yeah, for sure. And Gunnar Souls, where can everybody find you? You have your own channel.
Yeah, Gunnar Souls on Twitter and on YouTube, and obviously you can find me here pretty much daily.
And you guys, if you want to follow Io on Twitter, you should. I think he has like what? How many followers do you have?
Look,
45
I'm,
or?
look, I'm not a pro like you guys. Don't start. Look, I thought we agreed we weren't gonna mention my followers. No, I need to up my Twitter activity. It'd be a pleasure if you follow me. I follow all real Gooners back. It's all love and Goonerdom from me anyway. And thank you, Rena, for the shout out. Much love, Miss B or Mrs. B.
All right, you guys. We'll talk to you later. See you tomorrow. And yeah, bye, guys.